Do you ever feel like your boss intimidates you? Not loudly, not obviously, but in that quiet way. A look during a meeting, a comment that sticks with you for days. The feeling that you always have to be careful not to say the wrong thing. That underlying tension whenever certain people walk into the room. And maybe you know this feeling too. You work hard, you put in the effort, you prepare yourself, but others seem to rise effortlessly, even though everyone senses that they manipulate people, belittle them, or emotionally destroy them. Why does that happen? Why is it so often the most ruthless who come out on top? And why do empathetic people suddenly feel weak, insecure, or drained in these kinds of environments? Maybe it's because some people operate according to completely different psychological rules. People who don't see power as a responsibility, but as control. People who can come across as charming and still instill fear. People who don't feel guilt the way others do. That's exactly what this book is about. Why assholes always float to the top. Not much substance, but a lot of buoyancy. I wanted to understand why certain personalities keep rising to the top, even though many people intuitively sense that they're not good for others. Why is it that it's often not the most empathetic or self-reflective people at the top, but the loudest, most ruthless, or most manipulative? The longer I spent dealing with this topic, the clearer it became to me the problem isn't just certain individuals. The problem is often the systems that reward exactly this kind of behavior. Because in many companies, self-promotion counts more than substance, dominance more than empathy, and volume more than content. And that's how a dangerous dynamic develops. People with a conscience hesitate. People without a conscience act. Some people reflect, others just go for it. That's why the book is about toxic personalities, narcissists, Machiavellians, psychopaths in tailored suits. Not as Hollywood cliches, but as people who work right among us. They often come across as controlled, intelligent, and confident. And that's exactly what makes them so hard to spot. I always use the image of a shark to describe this. The shark isn't loud. It observes, analyzes weaknesses, waits patiently, and moves through the system without any inner friction. That's exactly what makes people like this so dangerous. They often act without guilt, without doubt, and without any emotional breaks. And while empathetic people are still wondering if they might hurt someone, others have already decided how to use the room to their advantage. But this book isn't meant to scare anyone. On the contrary, because fear often arises where we sense things but don't understand them. But if you realize why some people manipulate, why they need power, why they belittle others, why they confuse control with strength, then their behavior loses some of its power over you. Understanding doesn't mean accepting, but understanding helps you protect yourself. Maybe that's the most important message of this book. You don't have to change toxic people, but you should learn to recognize them early. Because those who understand the rules of the game are much harder to manipulate. And sometimes that very understanding is the first step back to inner peace. The book, Why Assholes Always Rise to the Top. Little substance, lots of buoyancy is therefore not just a takedown of toxic personalities. It's an attempt to understand why modern systems so often reward exactly those people who emotionally harm others, and how you can learn not to let them intimidate you.